You are listening to Third House Podcast, Astrology, Witchcraft, Creativity, and Life, with your host, Brittany Pastuhov, an astrologer and life coach specializing in confidence for women. Hey, ambitious witches, I'm coming out soon with a mini course called Moon Cycle Miracles that you have to know about. It combines self-coaching with astrology and magic to get you to your goals faster, better, and with less stress. It's a $27 mini course that's going to include a brand new updated guide, similar to the lunar cycle planning guide that all of my coaching clients use. I give it to them when they start for 3 or 6 months of coaching with me, and they're able to create their vision, build out their goals in a way that feels good to them, and flow with the moon cycles as they meet and even exceed their goals. So if you have like goal setting trauma from school or jobs, like this is so different. It's all about cycle syncing with the cycles of the moon that we all experience, from the new moon when things are new and we might do some magic to start something or start a new phase of a project, to the full moon when the energy is high and it's really wonderful for manifesting or releasing things, to the dark moon or the waning moon when we are resting and reflecting. This helps you sync with the cycles. It gives you information about the different moon signs and phases, as well as a calendar of moon phases to work with. I'm going to add more planning sheets and like the bullet journal that I use to plan my lunar cycle planning. This is how I meet all of my goals. And yes, sometimes I don't hit the deadline that I set for myself, which we all find kind of difficult. But eventually, if I'm going to do it, it gets done. And that is thanks to lunar cycle planning and the magic of timing things. So you never have to try and fail with a New Year's resolution goal again, because you always have another moon cycle coming up to revise, figure out what wasn't working for you, and pivot to make sure that you're still getting the results you want. You're making miracles with moon cycles. Welcome to Pisces season. This is your lunar cycle forecast for the eclipse season, starting with the Aquarius solar eclipse, February 17th. I'm recording this on the 18th, and we are in it. We are in Pisces season. This is a wild cycle. February is one of the biggest months of 2026. With our eclipse season, including a total lunar eclipse, the major event of Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th, a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. It's Pisces season. We have the stellium in Pisces now that will migrate to Aries and makes aspects to Uranus, Jupiter, and Pluto along the way. So, exciting times. We'll start with the chart for the solar eclipse, February 17th. I mentioned this at the end of the last forecast. I always preview the next new moon in case I can't get to the forecast right away. This eclipse at 28 degrees of Aquarius, almost at the very end of Aquarius, 2849, is in the Saros cycle 121. So similar solar eclipses along this path were February 7th, 2008, January 26th, 1990, January 16th, 1972. If any of those dates align with things you remember from the Aquarius Leo cycle in those years. Saros cycles go back hundreds of years. I'm just pulling the most recent 3. This eclipse was also square Uranus in Taurus here. So that was the major aspect being made. And it's close to the North Node in Pisces, indicating that it's bringing something in rather than eclipsing something out. So Saturn rules this Aquarius eclipse. Saturn, Neptune in Aries. You can see here they're already conjunct. This conjunction becomes exact February 20th. It's a major transit that we'll talk about more in a minute, but this dissolution of boundaries, lots of change, some kind of shock to the system in mid-February. So this eclipse is aligned with it. It's ruled by it, by that conjunction, basically, by that Saturn in Aries. This eclipse marked Chinese Lunar New Year 2026, so the year of the fire horse. And it's even bigger than just the year of the fire horse. It's kind of the beginning of an era this week. So it brings in something new collectively regarding social organization, technology, systems, and definitely revolutions, reformations. It's squaring Uranus and Taurus, meaning shocks and changes in terms of the Taurian earthy concepts of economy, bodies, health, and food. Personally, it's going to begin an eclipse cycle in your chart on the houses that contain Aquarius and Leo. And a reading can help you identify that for yourself. So you can see how the cycle of change might play out in your life and direct energy toward the change that is best for you. Eclipses happen every 6 months, and the cycles are every 18 years, and they kind of overlap. So this year we have Aquarius and Leo eclipses, and we also have a Virgo eclipse this month because we were doing the Pisces Virgo cycle since 2024. Okay, and then we go back to our current transits. The sun has entered Pisces February 18th. So the sun in the last sign of the zodiac, and there's also a stellium here. You can see Venus is already in Pisces, Mercury is in Pisces, the moon entered Pisces after the Aquarius eclipse, so in the North Node is there. So we've got a lot of Pisces energy right now. This is the sign of endings, of synthesis, of our cosmic oneness, of spirituality, mysticism, beliefs in general. It's a sign that is known for compassion and empathy, even to the extreme of being an empath who can easily pick up on and internalize the emotions of others and has to work hard to assert stronger boundaries, right? Pisces can be very diffuse, like water, have a hard time finding boundaries and connect with everything in the environment or take on the energy of an environment. Pisces is associated with oceans, mermaids, fantasy. It's a sign of creativity. It encompasses art, especially dance and film and music, with Pisces involved. Pisces season is a time for dreams and visions and for positive escapism. As Ursula K. Le Guin wrote, the direction of escape is toward freedom. So what is escapism an accusation of, right? Escapism doesn't have to have this negative connotation. An escape can be moving in the direction of freedom. So that's the season that we're in. Those are the vibes. That's the energy that we have in this cycle. Then we get to February 20th, when the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is exact at 0 degrees 45 Aries. This is when the year of the fire horse really gets going, and that's just Friday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. So it's happening now. It's exact on Friday. I've covered the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in my annual forecast because it's such a major aspect for this year. The cycle of Saturn and Neptune conjunctions happen every 36 years. So the last one was in Capricorn, November 13th, 1989. But what's important to know about the 2026 conjunction is that it's at 0 degrees of Aries at the Aries point. And Brianna Saucy, a fellow mystic, reminded me in one of her recent newsletters that the last time these two planets met at the Aries point, the very first degree of the first zodiac sign, right, the 0 Aries, that was approximately 9,000 years ago. That's around 7,000 BC, when humanity was first developing agriculture. Talk about a sea change for humanity. First developing agriculture, that's the scale of the change that astrologers are talking about when we discuss this year's Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries. Saturn and Neptune always create big changes, dissolving old structures and creating new ones every 36 years. But this time, we're talking about a change of a larger magnitude, something that we'll look back on as the beginning of a brand new cycle for humanity, for the world. So the difficult part of predicting anything of this larger magnitude is that it's likely not to be a single event, but a wave of change in our beliefs, our thinking, the way we structure society. It's not necessarily going to be pinpointed to that single day of February 20th, although there may be a marked event this week. When historians talk about the arc of history, what Richard Tarnas was writing about in Cosmos and Psyche, his academic study of Western history's intersections with astrology, it's these big shifts in beliefs and culture that mark periods of human history. And those aren't really quite as visible from the ground while we're in it, right? Historians make it look neat and clean as they curate history and tell that narrative, but we know that no historical narrative is objective anyway. So we're talking about humongous shifts that will mark an age of humanity. That's what you're living in. It's like being a Roman at the beginning of the Hellenistic age or living through the Reformation. And to frame how we want to envision the future, this can be liberation for us. This could be the moment when the attempts at fascism really start to dissolve and the wave of the people's will breaks through. The wave of the people's will breaks through that barrier. And when I said I almost named my 2026 forecast the year of fire and ice in reference to Norse mythology, I wasn't even thinking about ICE, immigrations and customs enforcement. But I realized after I said that and everything that went down in Minneapolis that it's a little too on point. So bring the metaphorical fire, bring the fire of your will, because it's all of us collectively involved in this intense cycle of change. So what does it mean for you personally with such a major, major transit? I would say this is a time to mark for shifts. It's a time to mark for shifts into new beginnings. Journal or meditate on this. What have you been trying to manifest that has been slow in coming to you? Is it what you really want now since you've been trying for so long? Or have you been working toward it for so long that you have a kind of like sunk cost fallacy? You've put a lot of time into this manifestation, so you want to get your money's worth, even if you've changed over time and maybe don't really want it anymore. Now is the time to let go of old desires, write them down, burn them, ritualize it, and remember what you do want. What is the true dream? What's the real fantasy to bring forth? For example, a lot of artists have day jobs, and that might be fine, and then may have goals for those day jobs, like getting a raise or finding a work from home gig that gives them more flexibility. Like, great, but that's not a Saturn-Neptune conjunction worthy goal. Because if the real dream is art, if the real dream for you is autonomy, is being an artist and not having to answer to these other concerns, that is the dream to bring forth with your magic. So think about what that looks like for you and allow old versions of yourself to fade away. No time is ever wasted. No effort is ever wasted. Everything you've done so far has brought you to this moment. But now you get to choose the path you want most. Aries is nothing if not bold and decisive. So this is a time for bold, decisive action and declarations of dreams. A brand new beginning with the solar eclipse and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. On the 22nd, we have Venus at 15 degrees of Pisces, trine Jupiter, and which is retrograde at 15 degrees of Cancer. So Venus is exalted in Pisces, and she makes this beautiful trine to an exalted Jupiter in Cancer. This is a gorgeous day, February 22nd. I spoke about the importance of kindness in the last forecast regarding Venus and Pisces. Acts of kindness and peace are a very good use of this transit. This is a very fertile aspect, literally and figuratively. It's also beautiful for glamour magic, love magic, creativity, beauty, healing, any kind of beautification or magic for your home. Water protection, protection of the vulnerable are also possibilities for this one. Okay. And then we have our little Pisces stellium continuing as we get to Mercury stationing retrograde on February 26th. Mercury stations retrograde at 22 degrees of Pisces and retrogrades back to 8 degrees of Pisces, where Mercury will station direct on March 20th. So between February 26th and March 20th, Mercury is retrograde. As I said in the annual forecast, all of our Mercury retrogrades this year are in water signs. So that gives me the impression that it's a lot about empathy, a lot about communication that isn't necessarily verbal, that is more of a felt experience between people and connection and collective expression. So since this is a forecast, to make this retrograde easiest on you in a tech-heavy, productivity-obsessed world, back up your data, get that new computer you need, get your car fixed before the 26th if you can. Paperwork and administrative tasks that are too important to wait 3 weeks are best done ahead of the retrograde. Similarly, it's usually best not to launch or start something during a retrograde or sign a contract, but if you must, just double check all of the details. It's not terrible luck, it just increases the likelihood that you'll have to do things twice to correct a mistake or that there will be delays. On the positive side, Mercury retrogrades are times of slowing down, recalibrating, rest, and revision. Time is not linear, ever, so this is a time when you can magically time travel, change the timeline, review the past, or even change the past or how it affects you if you like. Especially with Mercury's retrograde through Pisces. This is the magician planet in the realm of cosmic oneness. Communication at this time is best not through precise words, but through music, painting, painting, dance, expressing the realms of emotions and the ineffable. On the 27th, we have Mars, the tail end of Aquarius, 27 Aquarius, 28 Aquarius, square Uranus in Taurus. This tense aspect, it's always going to be volatile. It's not at all subtle. I would expect some kind of protest or conflict here between the people and the fascist government in the United States. We had just fabulous organization in Minneapolis when Mars was in Capricorn trine Uranus in January. Now Mars is in Aquarius, sign of the social order and humanity. So we take that organization from one place and expand it to others. Squares are tension because tension creates change. So use this aspect to create change in your own life or in the larger world. Then on the 28th, we have Mercury retrograde meets Venus in Pisces. Oh. Okay, Mercury's conjunction with Venus reveals something, or is a time to have a conversation about love. Maybe the individual couple kind of love, but more likely the universal or collective version. It's a beautiful day to communicate with love, to perform acts of kindness, or to connect and create. And since Mercury retrograde's reveal, it's revealing something about relationships and love at this time. Okay, that's February 28th, and then March 2nd, Mars enters Pisces and joins the stellium. So when the planet of action enters the sign of peace, we have an opportunity to act for good. This combination reminds me of monks chanting to bless the world, an action that I believe absolutely has a positive effect on the world. But it's an act of belief, an action of peace, an action that is misunderstood sometimes, often done in the privacy of a monastery. It's not in public. It's a great transit, Mars and Pisces, for spiritual, mystical work, especially dream work, and for taking action to escape to freedom in whatever ways are available to you. It can also be great for artists for taking action on the vision. Then the next day, March 3rd, we have our total lunar eclipse. I'm going to pull up the chart for that one on YouTube. This eclipse is at 13 Virgo, 12 degrees, 53 minutes of Virgo. It's in the Saros cycle 133. So similar lunar eclipses that happened on this path, February 21st, 2008, February 9th, 1990, and January 30th, 1972. This eclipse in Virgo continues our Virgo-Pisces eclipse cycle that started in 2024 and continues through 2027. So to reflect on this specific cycle, look back on September 2024, March 2025, and September 2025, when previous Pisces and Virgo eclipses were happening. The houses that contain the signs of Virgo and Pisces in your chart form an axis that tells you where in your life these changes are occurring. And we're right in the middle of it, so you may not see a resolution yet, but you are in the midst of change. And the eclipse is sextile to Jupiter in Cancer, and the opposition to sextile to Jupiter here, opposition to Mercury retrograde in Pisces, support changes and letting go at this time. A note on total lunar eclipses. So a total lunar eclipse is what's known as a blood moon, which is when the full moon appears to us to be red because of the Earth's shadow. As the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, and most of the sun's light is blocked, the light that gets through is filtered through the Earth's atmosphere, hence the red-orange color. The totality of this eclipse will be visible from Eastern Asia, Australia, the Pacific, and some parts of the Americas. And you'll probably see a lot of social media posts about the total blood or moon eclipse, and I just want you to know that every total lunar eclipse is a so-called blood moon, and it can only happen on a full moon anyway. This is a good eclipse for letting go of critical thoughts and judgment, which are some of the issues of Virgo, quieting down the inner critic and giving yourself and others some grace. Something may be let go from your life that you're not in control of, so then letting go of control and allowing may be appropriate for these situations. It's also a good time to let go of unhealthy habits, which Mercury retrograde is also good for this, and try to replace that unhealthy thing with something you actually enjoy that is a little more healthy. It's not the best time to start your brand new, ultra healthy new routine during the eclipse and retrograde season, but if you can, for example, replace scrolling on your phone with reading magazines by getting some magazines that you like and arranging them on your coffee table. The analog medium of a magazine provides the desired relaxation and distraction, but it's a little less stimulating. It's more within your control what kind of content you will see, and it can be relaxing too. So it can be easier on your system, like healthier, but not as like perfect maybe as reading a book when you want to scroll, since that can feel like a weightier task and you might avoid it anyway. So remember, Virgo rules small things. Let go and replace in small ways, and congratulate yourself on small changes. Release self-judgment about the habits you have or your struggles with changing them with this eclipse. And of course, there's the larger cycle that I mentioned of changes that are happening, but that's just one way to relate to this total lunar eclipse in Virgo, March 3rd. Okay, let me get back to March 3rd. So we have our total lunar eclipse, and then March 4th, Venus in Pisces makes a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So we have Venus here, there's the sextile to Uranus. Our exalted Pisces Venus is making this friendly little aspect to Uranus. It's indicating some potential excitement in relationships, creative possibilities, connections with nature. March 4th, it's the time for very early planting, spring thaws. Even though it's winter in the Northeast, maybe you want to get outside, reinforce that relationship with the nature spirits that are local to you. Those relationships are so important right now. And then March 5th, Sun trine Jupiter. So we have the Sun at 15 Pisces, makes a trine to Jupiter in Cancer here. Traditionally, this is very lucky when the Sun and Jupiter align. So making a positive aspect to our exalted Jupiter in Cancer amps up your luck today, especially for those with Pisces placements. So take action on your luck. And then the next day, March 6th, Venus enters Aries. So Venus, the planet of love, relating, beauty, and harmony, leaves her exalted position in Pisces, where she's been since February 10th, and moves into Aries, which is a sign of her detriment traditionally. She was a goddess of love and war, though, once upon a time. So the expression all's fair in love and war apply. So here in Aries, Venus is more assertive, more independent. She can use her relational powers to lead others, to pioneer creative ideas, to begin new things and adventure on her own hero's journey. This is a time when you may cultivate more independence within relationships, pursuing your own interest when a significant other does not share it with you. The healthiest relationships, of course, are between two fully expressed, self-aware individuals. So independence is a good thing at times. Venus will also be meeting with Neptune and Saturn in Aries, which we'll get to because that's important. And then March 7th, the Sun and Mercury align, so there'll be a conjunction of the Sun with the Mercury retrograde at 17 Pisces on the 7th. This highlights something about the revelations that may come at this period. So retrogrades reveal, especially the Mercury retrogrades, reveal information. Something comes to light, something about the past, something of power and magic reclaimed, old creative ideas surfacing again for attention. Pay attention to what comes up. Also on the 7th, we have Venus meeting Neptune exactly at 1 Aries. She basically meets Neptune and Saturn as soon as she enters the sign, but this is the exact conjunction. Indicates high creativity, especially for fantastic adventure stories or risky pioneering creative ventures. Venus and Neptune together in any sign can create illusions in relationships, so it's important to stay clear. But this transit is also fairly quick. So pay attention to what comes up, what's revealed, what's created as Venus and Neptune meet. It might have something to say about who you will partner with in this new cycle created by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction to achieve that dream or goal. You may want to separate from someone or something to be more independent, considering that instinct as you make long-term decisions moving forward. And then Venus on the 8th makes the exact conjunction with Saturn. So Venus and Saturn can get very serious or even create restrictions or blocks. So again, this could have something to say about who you will partner with in the new cycle of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and you may want to separate from someone or something to call in the new. That doesn't have to be an impulsive choice, but note what happens, note the instincts you feel at that time between March 7th and March 8th. This aspect could be challenging, or it may reward some bigger effort you've made in the realms of relating. Face fears over taking risks at this time. Then on the 9th, we have our Mercury retrograde trine Jupiter in Cancer. So making a trine again, the most recent one was February 16th. I said at that time they're working for peace and protection. So something on those themes or something related to water rights, water scarcity, and sacredness could be revealed during this Mercury retrograde on the 9th. As I said in the January forecast, if 2026 echoes 2016, let it be an echo of peace and a sign of the resistance to fascism, creating a better world in spite of or because of what is happening politically. It's personally a beautiful day for creative acts and acts of protection or kindness. On the 10th, Venus sextile Pluto. So Venus is in Aries now, making that sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So everything that passes through Aries is going to be sextile Pluto. And we also have that Neptune-Pluto sextile building, as well as the Saturn-Pluto sextile. So both of those cycles being in play. So Venus makes a nod to Pluto. And as I've said before, Pluto and Aquarius really stirring us up. It's absolutely continuing for a long time, at least 20 years. Pluto brings up all the hidden problems and horrors of society and requires us to look, what Jung called the shadow. We want to pretend it's not there, but it is. It's definitely been coming up lately. So this is actually a very deep aspect between Venus and Pluto. We're in a moment of reckoning regarding the darker side of politics and society. Engage with others who are against evil and use the fire of Aries' new beginnings, courageous Aries, to come together and empower one another. March 10th, Venus sextile Pluto. Also on March 10th, Jupiter stations direct at 15 degrees of Cancer. So you can see here on March 11th, but on March 10th, Jupiter stations direct, continuing the transit through Cancer. As I mentioned in another forecast, Jupiter is exalted in this sign, and we have about 3.5 more months until Jupiter will move into Leo June 30th. So the possibilities for this transit: growth of intuitive or creative wisdom and knowledge, abundance, creative births or literal births, spiritual abundance, the vital breath, emotional growth, expanded protection and blessings. Expanded protection and blessings, home expansion, housing crisis problems and solutions, expanded use of water or expanded water protection, safe harbors, motherhood, parenthood, teaching and learning, care, all expanded or more possible with Jupiter in Cancer. Okay, and then we move ahead. As you can see with Venus in Aries, then we start to move from, we still have a Pisces stellium, now we also have an Aries stellium. So a lot of energy concentrated on this area of the zodiac that is endings and new beginnings, okay? Deaths of the old, births of the new, all of the theme of this eclipse cycle and Mercury retrograde. And then we skip ahead to the 15th. We have Mercury conjunct Mars in Pisces. So Mercury retrograde meets Mars, and our most recent Mercury-Mars conjunction was in Capricorn on January 18th. We had organized communication about action, people stepping into authority and feeling impassioned, feeling ready to lead. It was a time when plans and actions came together in a more real, grounded way, and ambitious plans and goals. And now some information may be revealed relating to these actions. It's also a time for the creative and spiritual endeavors I've been talking about with planets transiting Pisces, action that looks more private or is taking place in the spiritual realm, the realm of magic. March 18th, Venus squared Jupiter. So you have Venus at 15 degrees of Aries, making that cardinal square to Jupiter in Cancer. Even though it's a square, aspects between Venus and Jupiter are usually positive. Jupiter is offering us more compassion and care for relationships, reminding Venus not to move too quickly or be too harsh with others. All connections are ultimately cosmically about love, and we are forming new ways of having safe connection with each other, safe harbors for people, and those births of the new that are protected with Jupiter in Cancer. We also have the Sun at 28 degrees of Pisces, sextile Uranus in Taurus. So that friendly nod enlightens us as to changes taking place in the impending endings as Uranus leaves the sign of Taurus in April of this year. So we have about one more month when Uranus will enter Gemini, April 25th. One more month of perhaps ending fascist actions, changing the world through cosmic love. In your own life, what has changed since 2018 when Uranus entered Taurus? What new beliefs have you found or created from those changes? What would you like to water and grow from seeds that have been planted during that time? Okay, and then that marks the end of a cycle. And on the 18th, we have our next new moon, which will be in Pisces at 28 degrees of Pisces, sextile that Uranus and Taurus. So following that Sun Uranus aspect that I was just talking about, where you're watering seeds that have been planted. The next new moon also has this out of sign conjunction to Neptune and Saturn in Aries, highlighting their significance as well, and is ruled traditionally by Jupiter in Cancer. The modern ruler would be Neptune in Aries. So with that rulership of an exalted Jupiter, it's a beautiful new moon in Pisces. It's lovely for dreaming big change on the threshold of the spring equinox. So this new moon and the equinox on March 20th are perfect for real new beginnings, for taking action on what started to change at the lunar new year of this cycle. So dream and envision during this eclipse cycle, ride the waves of the rocky eclipse, Mercury retrograde energy. Plan for action that takes place at the spring equinox, when Mercury will station direct and we will have our sun in Aries with Neptune and Saturn. Anything is possible. Possibility is only limited by your imagination. I hope that you have a wonderful lunar cycle, and I will be back to forecast the next one.